welcome back to the channel. Happy spring. I have been so unbelievably hyped that it's spring and winter is over. If you guys are on my Patreon, then you already know I had an insane winter. Just like the end of January and February were wild months. So I am so excited that it's spring. I actually even made a spring checklist on my phone, on my notes app, and I've been like keeping track of all the things that myself and my husband want to do to celebrate the spring season. I think that this is one of the most fabulous seasons that we have. I know we only have 4, but this one has to be the best one. It's just all about growth and birth and like just being refreshed and renewed, and it's just a great time. So I am super excited that it's spring and that it's not winter anymore. One of the things that I wanted to do this season was to host either a tea or a brunch or a spring picnic of some kind. And at first, I didn't think that I was going to film it. I thought I was just going to like do it and have fun with my friends. And then at the last minute, I was like, oh, this would be kind of like a cool thing to film and turn into a video. So that's what we're doing today. My husband and I decided to throw a spring potluck in the park, at a park that's not too far from our apartment. And we invited a bunch of friends and family, and it was a really good and fun time. So I thought it would be fun to kind of go through everything that we did, like the things that we cooked, what I baked, what I wore, the flower arrangements and the activities that we did, and just kind of give you guys like a checklist in case you want to maybe host a spring potluck or a spring picnic of some sort. It was definitely a vibe. I feel like it was the perfect event to host to sort of kick off the season. So I wanted to share all of that with you and hopefully give you a little bit of spring inspo. But before I jump into all of that fun stuff, I want to talk about the importance of community. I think that, you know, underneath this sort of facade of hosting and like, you know, I made a video on my Patreon about like the new hosting obsession. And I was talking about how there's like a lot of content right now about hosting, and like people are always like, oh, you know, host with me for like this party, or like I hosted this, or I host a dinner party every month, and like things like that. And at first I was like, where is this coming from? And we chatted about it a bit over on Patreon. And one of the things that someone brought up was, I think that people are having a need for community. And the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. In today's world, we are so hyper individualistic. Like we all really kind of only care about our own stuff. I mean, not to overgeneralize, I know that most of us care about other people, but it's really hard to care about other people when you're trying to survive. And I think that's like one of the like negative impacts of capitalism is because we're all trying so hard, and like there's always this like thin layer of competition, especially now with social media, and like, you know, we're always kind of like looking at what other people have. And I just think that right now more than ever, it's really important to build your community. And I think that a great way to do that is through hosting events, you know, inviting people over and hosting things like a potluck. I had the realization this morning, not only is it awesome to host like an event where, you know, you do all the cooking and all that, like that's great too, but hosting a potluck is awesome because it really shows what can happen when everyone puts in effort and brings something to the table, like literally and figuratively. You know, a bunch of people at our potluck brought chips and dip, people brought desserts, people brought drinks, and it just goes to show that like when everyone brings something, we can all get fed. My husband and I, we did cook a few things which I want to share with you, but it was so cool because this morning I was able to use some of the tortilla chips that someone else brought to make chilaquiles with like the salsa that someone else brought for breakfast this morning. And I just think that it's such a beautiful concept that like if we all can bring something to the table or like share our resources, like everybody gets fed. And I think that's just really important and a really valuable thing that we can tap into, especially in the next 4 years. Because I think, well, whatever, we don't have to get into that, but I think just like sharing and building community is so important, and this is one of the ways to do that. So it's more than just the aesthetic. It's more than just the cute, like, oh, like what all my friends wore to my dinner party. It's like, no, we're building community here, and we're creating a world where, you know, you can reach out to a friend that maybe you met at a party or something, and you can say, hey, like, you know, I met you at this thing, and like we have something in common. And it was just so great to see people who never met each other before connecting and, you know, talking. It's wild how much we actually do have in common when we stop and like actually take the time to converse with other people and like get out of our own bubbles. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, and I just think that community building is so important. And if you want to host something like this, I think this is a great way to, you know, establish community, make friends, meet new people, and just live in a way that's not so like self-centric or like self-focused. I was thinking about another cool way to host a party like this. That would be like an interesting community building practice. And something that I thought about was like, what if you hosted a party where like everyone brought, you know, like a kitchen appliance that they no longer need, or everyone brought like a book that they finished reading. Just like we can all share resources. We don't have to all hoard resources. So I just think there's so many different ways that, you know, so many different directions that you can go with a party where people bring things to the table and we share resources. And I think it's just really cool that we have the ability to do that. So if you want to, a spring potluck is a way to do that. That's what we did, but there's so many other ways that you can build community and you know, enjoy the season at the same time. So for our party, like I said, it was a potluck. So I wasn't really like thinking too much about the menu. I knew a few things that I wanted to have for sure. And then I wanted to kind of allow people to bring what they felt comfortable bringing. I didn't like, you know, dictate to people like, you need to bring this and you need to bring this. I just kind of let people bring what they wanted to, and it worked out perfectly. But here is what we made. The first thing was this delicious potato and arugula pesto, like potato salad. There was debate at the party as far as, is it a potato salad or is it a salad that happens to have potatoes? Personally, I consider it a potato salad. However, my friends and my mom all were like, that's a salad that has potatoes. So you know what? Whatever the case, it was delicious. My husband made it. I found the original recipe and then he kind of like doctored it up. I'm gonna ask him what he did exactly, like what, you know, because I don't know. He was making it while I was asleep. It was so good. It had these like tiny roasted baby potatoes, and then arugula, and we just did a pre-made like store-bought pesto, which was delicious. I think it also had some red onion in there, and there were a couple other things that we could have added. I asked ChatGPT, olives and capers, but honestly, like the salad on its own was just delicious. We didn't need all of the add-ins. I think we did add a little bit of extra olive oil, and I don't think we did, but we wanted to add, well, again, another optional add-in was like pecorino or Parmesan, but it was so good on its own, it really didn't need much of anything. So my husband woke up early the morning of the party and he roasted the potatoes and he got the salad all together, and it was so good. Next thing that we brought to the party was a crudité platter. Mine was one that was very green focused. I saw this image on Pinterest that I absolutely like fell in love with, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. I just sort of organized various green vegetables on this really gorgeous platter that I got at an antique shop. And I used, I think, snap peas and broccoli. My husband blanched some asparagus and we put that on there as well. Yeah, so we had snap peas, asparagus, broccoli, cucumbers, and then this really gorgeous purple cauliflower, all on a bed of butter lettuce. That was just for like the aesthetic. Finally, I put on some edible flowers on top, all like dispersed around the platter, because I just thought spring flowers, that was kind of the theme. I was putting like edible flowers and flower sprinkles on everything. And it ended up really cute. And then for the dips, we actually went to a local bakery and that has the most amazing hummus. And we just put some hummus in a bowl, and they also had a red pesto that I put in a bowl and put that out on the platter. And it looked really good, and it was really delicious, and everybody loved it. I think this platter, I'm angry with myself that I didn't get more photos, because I think this platter was like the most aesthetically pleasing thing. I mean, there were a lot of aesthetically pleasing things, like the potato salad and the lemon bars, like everything looked really good, but for some reason, I just think this crudité platter was like so cute. So the next thing that we got that was kind of like savory was empanadas. I didn't make them, okay? Because I didn't have time to be like in the kitchen, like making a bunch of dough, filling it, like all that stuff. I could have made it from scratch, but I didn't, okay? But I did pick them up from my favorite Brazilian tap house. There's this Brazilian tap house near us and they have the most amazing empanadas, and I got beef, chicken, and veggie because we had a few vegetarians. Now, here's a tip. I, at first, was ordering so many because we were gonna have about 30 people at this party, or 25, which is like almost the amount of people we had at our wedding. So many people RSVP'd, yes. I was very surprised. But I think, again, like I think people like kind of need community. Anyways, I had ordered all these, I had all these empanadas in my basket, and I was gonna order so many, and my total was coming up to be like to a lot. And then I had the thought of like, you know what, no one needs an entire empanada. Like we'll all be fine if we all just have like half. So instead I cut the order back by about like 7, and I decided I would just cut the empanadas in half, and then people could just take a half. And it went really well because we still had some left over. And I just think it goes to show that like people don't need as much as you think they need. Like, especially when it comes to food, I always overbuy, and I always find myself like accidentally, you know, spending too much because I feel like, oh, I just need more food and more drinks. But really, you don't need as much as you think you need. And it's definitely true for something like an empanada or something like, you know, little sandwiches. Like, you can always cut things. You can always cut things in half. I think sometimes, you know, our eyes can be bigger than our stomachs. Half the time, like, a lot of food goes to waste when you have things like that. People will take a whole one and then they can't finish it. So buy less and split things in half, and let's all just share. So now moving on to desserts. I have a lot to say about the desserts. I knew I wanted to make something lemony and citrusy just as like a celebration of, you know, brightness and the season. And so I wanted to make lemon bars or lemon squares, however you call them. I started out with a recipe by Preppy Kitchen, which is the footage that you guys are gonna see. And I hate to say it, but it was really bad. Now, I will say part of it's my fault because I did use like gluten-free flour. So that's kind of my bad. But even like the filling, I just didn't like it. This recipe called for lemon, what's it called? Lemon, like shredded lemon, I don't know, like grated lemon, in addition to the lemon juice. And I just didn't like what it did to the texture. So you're seeing the footage from the Preppy Kitchen recipe, but what I actually ended up doing was the day before, made the Sally's Baking Addiction recipe. Sally's my girl. Like, Sally can do no wrong. The amount of Sally's Baking Addiction recipes I've made, and people have asked if it's like professional, is insane. She has the most amazing, easy to follow recipes in the world. I love her. So I used her recipe. So I did the Preppy Kitchen recipe 2 days prior to the party, hated it. And then I did the Sally's Baking Addiction recipe the day before the party, and it came out perfectly. Unfortunately, I don't have that many pictures of the lemon squares, but they went super fast. Everyone really liked them. I dusted them with powdered sugar and added edible flour sprinkles at the end, and it was so good and so springy and so on brand. So I think what I'll do is for another video, I will show you guys that recipe and show you exactly what I did and how I made it super festive in a different video. I was worried that we wouldn't have enough desserts because, like I said, I'm always concerned about not having enough. So at the last minute, the night before the party, I decided to make brownies. I always have everything I need for brownies because brownies are so easy. It's literally just like eggs, olive oil, sugar, cocoa powder, and I happen to have espresso powder. Like, I always randomly have everything I need for brownies. So I whipped up a really amazing brownie recipe. Didn't record that, but I will leave the recipe down below. And when I tell you, the brownies disappeared. And again, I didn't make that many, but I cut them into like little bite-sized pieces, and it was enough for everybody, and people absolutely loved them, and they were so, so good. I think that's it for what we made in terms of food. And then what other people brought pasta salad, people brought cookies, some people brought rotisserie chicken, people brought chips and salsa, chips and guacamole, another person brought empanadas, another person brought, my mom made the most delicious rice ever. People were asking like, how did she make this? It was so good, and oh God, I actually specifically requested that recipe because I just love that rice so much. It's like a yellow rice with black beans and like little kielbasa sausage, and it's so good. So she made that, she brought that. Oh, we also made like a fruit platter with some cheese, some Parmesan, and some crackers. Just like very simple stuff. Like realistically, it wasn't anything too crazy. And again, something that I'm always talking about on this channel is using what you have. And that is something that I did for this party. I did buy a couple tablecloths because I wanted there to be like a little bit of a consistent theme. I ended up using 3 of the tablecloths that I got, and then I used 1 of my own, and then I used quilts for the food table because I thought that it would look really pretty, and it did. And that was something really cool that I thought about, where it's like you don't have to necessarily like go out and buy something that you think you need. You can, again, repurpose what you have. Like, I don't think you would typically think of using a quilt as a tablecloth, but it was such a vibe and it was so pretty and it just felt super springy. And actually when people were walking by, because we were in a public park, they were like stopping and asking me if I made the quilt, where I got the quilt, which is a perfect tie-in to the decor. So for the decor, I wanted to keep it really like light. I didn't want to do anything that I thought was going to be a little cheesy, so I didn't want to do like balloons or streamers or anything like that, because spring to me feels so like naturally beautiful. I really wanted to highlight the natural beauty of the season, so I just focused on flowers and like making it look abundant with food and flowers. I went to the flower shop the flower market the morning before the party, and I went in knowing exactly what I wanted. So one thing that I like to do when I go to the flower market is make a list of like what I know I'm gonna get or what I know I want. Sometimes they don't have exactly what you need, but I always have a list, because otherwise you're gonna go in there, you're gonna get overwhelmed with all the beauty, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I just wanna take it all. And so I had a list. So I knew that I wanted Icelandic poppies, I knew that I wanted sweet peas, I knew that I wanted ranunculus because they're my favorite flower. I decided to make like a lot, I don't know how many, but I decided to make several bud vase arrangements because I think bud vases are a really like easy way to get a lot of bang for your buck. And so, because you can always just put like 1 flower in there or 2, you don't have to make like these big full arrangements, and you still kind of get like the same like floral feeling. So I got these bud vases on Amazon, which I was able to use rewards points to purchase, so they ended up being free, and they worked out perfectly. So I just put a couple stems in each bud vase, and then I emptied out my fridge and stuck them in the fridge and brought them to the party the next day. I do the same thing with flowers that I do with food, where I always feel like I need more, but I think if you're interested in flowers at all, creating like a recipe for your arrangement or for your bud vases or whatever is very, very important, because then you know exactly what you're getting, you know exactly how much you're putting in each arrangement, in each bud vase, whatever, and you don't have to go over. I've learned this the hard way a couple times now for a couple events that I've done, where I have a recipe and ChatGPT tells me like exactly how much I need, and I still go back and get more because I'm so nervous about not having enough. But you just gotta remind yourself, and I just have to remind myself, it's enough. And even if like it's not enough, like you have to also think about like your guests aren't gonna know the difference. Like they're just happy to be there. They're just excited to be invited to something and to be like hanging out with people. And so you really don't have to worry too much about like, oh my God, I don't have like this 1 flower that I thought I wanted, because they're not gonna know the difference. But I understand it's hard as a fellow like semi-perfectionist when you have a vision for something and then it, you know, you either don't get to execute it or you forgot a flower or something. But just stick to your recipe, stick to your budget, and it'll be okay. It's gonna be beautiful no matter what. Oh, there's a really pretty butterfly out the window. I kind of wanted the party to have like an early 2000s kind of vibe where things were a bit mismatched. So like I said, I did use the tablecloths that I got, but then I also mixed it in with like my own tablecloths, and then like I said, quilts that I had. And I also brought in my own plates. I did not use plastic or paper plates, and I think on its face that might seem, I don't know, like pretentious or maybe like too much effort or whatever, but I am a firm believer that we all deserve to eat on real plates. Like, I don't know what I have against paper plates. I just like don't like them. I don't know what it is. I'm just not a huge fan. And at first I was like, oh, paper plates would be easier, like I'll just do that. But then I was actually watching an episode of Pamela Anderson's show, Cooking with Love, which is not available in the United States. It makes me so sad because the first 3 episodes are on YouTube. And I love that show so much, and I've learned so much on that show, watching that show. And I love her, and I just think that it's a phenomenal show. I was watching her show and she said something about how like the ambiance of your party is just as important as like the food, and how if you look at food as art, then that means that you can be an artist with like the design and the tablescape. And I was like, yes, Pam, I love that. So we decided to use my antique plate collection, because why else do I have them if not to share with my loved ones? I can only eat on one plate at a time anyway, so might as well see them being enjoyed and used by other people. And I think, you know, again, just thinking about like resources and what we can share, I think that it's just so heartwarming when people arrive at a party, especially one that's like in a park or a picnic or something like that, and they're like, oh wow, like you're using real plates. Like, I think our society is so into convenience that we have lost the art of like enjoying beautiful things and things that are made well. And don't get me wrong, like I mean, paper plates have their time and their place, but I think like, you know, for someone like me who I have this huge collection of antique plates that I love and that I find so beautiful, I would love to like have other people enjoy them as well. They're not just for me. Like, yes, I have them, but like if I'm gonna throw a party, I want other people to enjoy them as well. So we did use almost all the plates from my antique plate collection. And it was just so fun to see people be so tickled at the fact that we were using real plates. And I think that they just added so much beauty and elegance to an outdoor setting. And I think that's something cool to think about if you're having a potluck or a picnic or some sort of like outdoor event. You don't always have, it doesn't always have to be like super casual just because it's outdoors, like, or just because it's a potluck. Like, I think some of these things we have connotations, or we have ideas in our mind about like what it's supposed to look like. And just because it's an outdoor event, or just because it's, you know, a picnic or a potluck, that does not mean that you have to use paper plates. Honestly, if you were thinking about doing a picnic in the park and your options were to buy like that really thin plastic tablecloth from the dollar store, or no tablecloth at all, I would go no tablecloth. Go no tablecloth, and just sort of like enhance the beauty naturally with flowers or flower petals or things that you find in nature. You can go forage and find pine cones that you can decorate, or you can, I mean, I don't know actually what you have in your region, but I feel like you can always forage things and find things that are beautiful in nature that you can use, that are free, that are not going to be bad for the environment. And that are not gonna be these like one-time purchases that you're never gonna use again and that are just gonna go in the trash afterwards. So finally, before my camera dies again, I wanna chat about like the logistics of a party like this, and the setup, and how we were able to score this beautiful area in this park. Parks are interesting, and it depends on the park. This was a regional park, so it's very, very large, and there were a lot of different picnic areas that we could have chosen from. The one that I wanted was already rented for the date that we were having the party, so I had to choose a different one, which ended up being a little bit more expensive. The thing about a picnic in the park, especially if you're doing like a regional park, is that you will probably have the option to pay to reserve that picnic area, or to just like show up first. Now, at first I wasn't sure if I like thought it was necessary to pay. I was like, well, no, it should be fine. Like, we'll just show up and it'll be fine. But then it was actually my husband who was like, no, I think we should reserve it, you know, just to be safe. But these park rules were so strange, because they were like, if you reserve it, you have to be there at 10 a.m. Otherwise, it will be open to the public by 10:30. And I was like, okay, that makes absolutely no sense. Why am I paying if it's gonna be open to the public at 10:30? But whatever, maybe it was a miscommunication. Maybe they just meant that the park was gonna be open at 10:30. I don't know. But anyways, so we had to pay to reserve that picnic area, and I'm really, really glad we did, because I ended up getting to the park at 10 a.m. like they told me to. And sure enough, and I started setting up, and sure enough, within like 30 minutes, people were coming up to that picnic area and looking at the sign that said reserved for like my name. And then they were kind of like, oh crap, like we can't hang out here because it's reserved today. So I am really glad that we reserved it, and we paid the little extra money to have it for the day, because I fear, especially because the weather was so nice, like it was the nicest day we've had this year. The weather was so perfect. I know that more people would have shown up, and I know that that area would not have been would not have been available. I showed up at 10, but the party didn't start until 12:30, so I was just there by myself, like setting up, kind of. All I had to set up were the tablecloths and the flowers. So I put down the tablecloths, I put down the flowers, and then I was just kind of sitting there like holding it. It's funny because the time was going so slow when I was there by myself, but then once it hit, once 11 o'clock came, it felt like I had no time to like set up all the food, and then it was 12, and then people started arriving around 12:30. Okay, and finally for activities that we did at our potluck. So I had gone to a really cute local shop and I picked up a few games that were on brand and on theme. I got a deck of cards that were like floral, and then I also got a puzzle and some flower presses, and then I brought some hula hoops from my mom's house, and then we also got a cornhole game. Now this, technically we didn't have, oh god, do not even think about it. As much as I love spring, I swear it's like it's the season where the bugs, they find me. Like no matter where I am, they find me. They fly. If you guys have been following me for a long time, you know the bees, they fly into my bedroom window, they fly into my car. Like bees are constantly finding me. I just saw one out the window. Anyways, my camera's gonna die, so I have to hurry. We played cornhole, people were hula hooping, people were doing the flower pressing. So I think it's a good idea to have a few activities that people can get their hands on in case maybe they're not as social, maybe they just want to sit down and like kind of chill. And it was a lot of fun. The cornhole was a hit, and also it was good because some people brought their kids, so their kids were having fun throwing the bean bags, and it was a good vibe. That is it for this video. I have to go. I've had to film it in like all these little chunks because my camera keeps dying, but we had so much fun at this spring potluck. It was such an amazing like opener to the season, and I hope it inspires you guys to do some more. Oh god, did it get in here? Oh no, we're good. I hope it inspires you guys to do some more hosting, some more gathering, and have some events of your own and continue community building because it is so, so important. So thank you guys for watching this video. I will link as many things as I can down below that I did use for the party, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.